I'm Emily, I live in Chongqing, and today we're going to Olympic Park. As far as I can tell from the map on my phone, Olympic Park is the closest green space near my apartment. And I'm on my way there to see if it's a good place to do some thinking about life. Because Starbucks is making me jittery, and it's a little too expensive anyway. Well, this isn't what I expected. The outside of the stadium is full of tea houses and hot pots, which, like if this was the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, it'd be all Shake Shacks and papaya dogs. Chongqing is part of the Sichuan Basin, which was established about 800 million years ago, and the crust was largely stable, which was significant at the time. And it was also largely underwater until about 420 million years ago in the Silurian period of the Paleozoic area. Now, fish didn't need public spaces because fish typically didn't own anything, as far as we know. And they could take their exercise, wherever they could wiggle.
Youngmen is a small town outside Luzhou City. It's basically one crossroads small. And it's the hometown of Lydia, one of my former students. It's a chickens on the roof kind of place. The family kept bees in a good-sized hive nearby, too. In May 2015, Lydia invited me to her hometown to spend Labor Day holiday with her family, and her friend Serena. Her family owned a couple of cell phone stores, and their apartment was just above one of them. It was similar to other Chinese apartments I had seen. Sufficient furniture and no decorations on the wall. Here we are enjoying some honey from her father's bees. Thank you, bees. The plan was to spend the day at the Sichuan Stone Sea outside the nearby city of 𝗖𝗵. The area is the seat of the Miao ethnic minority people in China, so the visitor center looks like a traditional Miao hat, the girls told me.
This summer, actually, scientists found a fossil of a fish with a jaw, which is significant, from 423 million years ago, at the end of the Silurian period, as part of the explosion in biodiversity after a previous mass extinction event. Which is, neither here nor there, but this area is just pretty cool. Thank goodness we paved over all of it. These days, in cities especially, I think an important part of city planning is to have these green spaces. I mean, when I played SimCity, I always would put park, because I thought that made a good city. I would often lose SimCity. Kind of crustal stability of the 8 million years ago through to now means that this area's geography is actually really interesting.
It was a rainy day. They had hired a guide to take us around the park, and we stuck to the path. The nature there is to be looked at from the safety of a paved walkway. It was smooth enough that the girls could check their phones as we walked. Lydia's mother was very worried about me slipping on the rocks. We cannot send the English teacher back broken, was her sentiment. We stopped for tea at a small shop in the park run by Miao people. They showed us the proper technique for drinking it, which was to aerate it in your mouth and let the liquid sit on your tongue.
So the Olympic Center is it's this stadium, but also there's some badminton courts, another soccer stadium somewhere, a rock wall, which sounds like just the kind of thing I would get into for 18 months, heavily obsessed with. Yes, that's it, I'm gonna be a rock climber. When I was young, I definitely believed in the nerd-jock divide. In fact, in high school, I requested if I could drop gym and take another math class, which was denied because they did say health education is part of your education. which I believed was a joke at the time. If private developers own everything, then your city is just not that welcoming. I think you need places where people can gather. And then, even better, if you can have public places for people to stay fit. It's good for your healthcare system, and it's also gives you a good pool to draw from for your military. In the background, you might be able to hear mahjong tiles, because any good Olympic park in the Sichuan Chongqing area would not be complete without a place to play mahjong. Like the fact that it was stable, and then there was periods of creating mountain ranges, and then underwater, then not underwater, and then underwater, means like the soil and the rocks are really interesting. And that's why Sichuan, the whole Sichuan and Chongqing area has some spectacular landscapes you can go out and enjoy nature in.
It was incredibly striking to emerge from the wooded pathway out onto this vista. It's a record-setting sinkhole, which record I forget, but the likes of which I had never seen. I gaped in wonder and took photo after photo. The others waited for me to take it all in. They had seen it before.
A lot of cultures also have something about the mind-body connection. I think it's actually a pretty modern idea that our minds are something separate from our bodies, and it's a little bit arrogant. When we first moved to China, I was kind of impressed with how Chinese-y everything was. Like, there really are pagodas and bamboo everywhere, and tea houses just outside the stadium.
Lydia, I found out later, had been using all this time to break up with her secret Chongqing boyfriend. They had met at English camp, but she wasn't into him anymore. Then, the guide settled up and left us behind. We were done with the rocks that looked like tigers, and she needed to go point them out to someone else.
Just like there's the mythos of writers who drink, there's also kind of a mythos of writers who run. And I find going for a run, or at least going for a walk, helps me crack some ideas sometimes. And I'm just happier when I keep active. The Chinese aesthetic is just everywhere in China, but I think that's my reaction to kind of an ethnocentric worldview, or at least not well traveled, because I had traveled a lot, but the expectation of my home is the default and everywhere else is an additional aesthetic, which kind of makes me wonder about what looks American. Is it all highways and strip malls? I hope not. But maybe everything brand new. Everything was built in the 60s. That's America's look. I am just a meat bag. I'm not thoughts inside a meat bag. The meat bag is me. And the meat bag is happier if I take care of it. So even while I wouldn't say I like to exercise, much like with writing, I like to have exercised. But one thing about nature that really astounds me is how dangerous it is, even to modern man who has conquered the world. You can still get lost in a forest and die because nature is dangerous. And that's why we need parks.
What national park experience is not improved by a thrilling ride down a kilometers-long slide? Down in the caves, there was an opportunity to take a full-on hike in total darkness. We got a few hundred meters in and then collectively decided this wasn't for us. We called it a day and headed back to Youngmen for dinner. The family was really very generous all day. They even sent me home with 24 eggs from their chickens and a whole leg of pork. Chinese hospitality was on full display.
Oh.
What? Huh?
Are they getting out? You can do all the research, but you really don't know until you get there that it's actually really an Olympic park with a bunch of courts and tracks and fields. But that's part of the adventure. We're taking a taxi home, of course, because part of it also is I got so turned around. I know we're really close to both the subway and to home, but I have no idea how to get here because I just got here. But once again, it's the part of the adventure. Oh yeah, now I know where we are.
可大学就是在前面一点。
就在这边，对。
啊，就是假如说在医院里面的话，就是那里。学校里面还是上面？
上面。
上面。
啊。
是哪个国家的？
我们是美国人。
美国哪个国家？
纽约。
纽约。
啊，但是。
很漂亮。
啊，我觉得。重庆也很漂亮。
在中国多久
？10年。
10年啊。
对，但是刚刚来重庆。以前我们住在泸州。啊，在四川。
四川。
啊。
四川那个泸州很好。
He approves. So we basically took the longest way possible to get to the park from our house. But I feel like we learned a lot about the city in the process. That's the subway right there.